Hello and welcome to this week's Medicinal Monday. I'm Dr. Susanna Alter,
And it's Dr. Ben here.
and we're both naturopathic doctors who empower individuals to heal themselves with whole food plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
So here we are talking more about food stuff, nutritional stuff, specifically whole food, plant-based nutritional science. And we're excited to unpack the topic of calcium, understanding calcium and our calcium needs. And of course, when people hear the term calcium, which is, of course, a mineral, an important mineral for the body, which we'll get into all of the things concerning that. But a lot of people just jump to bone health and, oh, I got to get enough calcium to ensure my bones stay strong and healthy. So we're going to be talking about calcium and the calcium requirements for our body. But we're also going to be expanding the conversation to touch on bone health at large, which, of course, is much more than just calcium intake.
Yes, and this is an important topic in the context of whole food plant-based eating because it's definitely one of the most common misconceptions out there that in order to get enough calcium, you need to consume animal products, mainly dairy is what comes to mind for most people.
And I think I know why this is a misconception. I think this is a deliberate misconception due to misinformation from, dare I say, propaganda sources from the industry-funded studies around calcium. So the nutritional science is a little bit muddy, and it's hard to sift through. Or it has been, but people have sifted through it and gotten to the heart of the matter. And so that we're going to be sharing that with you. But when we're talking about calcium and we're talking about the body, it's incredible that 99% of calcium is in fact stored in our bones, in our teeth, and in those places, and or at least that's where it should be. And calcium is the most abundant mineral in the human body. So of course, we're going to need to ensure that abundant mineral in our body stays replete and we are getting enough calcium in our day-to-day nutrition.
Yes. Yes, but it's also important to realize that calcium is not just needed for healthy bones, but it's also required for many other physiological processes in the
Yeah.
body. Some of those include healthy muscle contraction, signaling neurological pathways, and also facilitating tons of different enzymatic reactions in the body.
Yeah, and whenever we're talking about minerals and vitamins and different things happening within the body, generally we're talking about an intricate balancing act that's always maintained by our body. It's not just a matter of just dumping a bunch of calcium in. We're going to be talking a little bit about calcium supplementations and maybe the risks associated with that. But when we're talking about calcium specifically, we need to balance it. It's not just more is better. Because as we know, calcium can also be stored in our arteries, in our veins, calcification leading to heart attack, cardiovascular disease, and stroke, but also calcification of gallstones and kidney stones, which are no fun as well. So that balance of our calcium is maintained primarily through vitamins D, which regulates the absorption and balancing levels of calcium in the body. And then vitamin K, which is known to tell calcium where to be stored in our body, and specifically telling calcium, hey, go to the bones, go to the teeth, stay away from the arteries. So oftentimes, you'll find a vitamin D3, K2 supplement that is designed to maintain that calcium balance. But we know that when we are getting calcium from whole plant food sources, the vitamin K is built in. So we really don't need to concern ourselves with vitamin K supplementation. It's maybe a controversial thing, but generally plant-based eaters do really well in maintaining this optimal calcium balance for a number of reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's really important to emphasize that bone health relies upon so much more than just calcium. I think people think, oh, I got to get a calcium supplement, calcium supplement, calcium supplement. But as we've just learned here from what you've shared, vitamin D and vitamin K are just as essential in that process.
Yeah. And as we're kind of branching into bone health real quick, calcium is just one mineral, right? When you look in the bones, all of the minerals, like specifically phosphorus is another major mineral in the bone, but all trace minerals are also fundamentally important for the structure of the bone. Collagen, which is of course a protein, essential for bone formation and growth. But the most important thing, just on the topic of bone, is activity, physical activity, specifically weight bearing exercises, moving against gravity, maintaining muscle mass on your bones actually triggers the bone, telling the bone, hey, grow stronger, hey, grow more. And this, of course, becomes much and more important as we age. Where are you?
I just thought of something.
Oh,
I don't mean to interrupt you.
please do.
Well, this is just a little personal anecdote. Ben and I just got a new scale. That's a very fancy scale. It's a smart scale. It's a
Yeah.
Withings. Is that what it's called? A Withings
Withings,
scale.
yeah.
We usually don't do the whole scale thing, but we have a scale, and it actually measures BMI. It measures bone density and
Bone mass.
or bone mass. So of course it's not, not a replacement for a DEXA scan or anything like that, but it measures your bone mass, and it also shows you where your bone mass is in terms of like the average
Healthy.
percentile. Yeah, healthy percentile. And I was, a little toot my horn here. I was impressed to see that I was up at the top of the healthy percentile.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys knew, but Susanna's quite big bones, I guess. Just kidding. Strong bones.
It's all that good weight-bearing exercise, and of course, I'm getting a great source of calcium from my whole plant food diet.
Yes,
which we'll talk more about.
So yes, weight-bearing exercise, that's pretty much become routine knowledge at this point in terms of what's important for maintaining strong, healthy bones. We got to be getting enough calcium for sure, but we need to be, telling our bones to grow, which is only done under gravitational forces pulling on the bones. The muscles pulling on the bones literally triggers the bones to turn over and grow more. So let's talk about calcium requirements. Susanna, I think, was the one who dug into this research and found. So share with the lovely people what you found around the calcium requirements.
So it's interesting because in the United States, the recommended daily intake for calcium for most people is anywhere between 1,000 and 1,200 milligrams, depending on your sex and age. But when you look at the recommended daily intake from other countries around the world, European countries, and just all other countries around the world, the recommended daily intake is actually closer to 500 to 700 milligrams of calcium a day. So, it gets you thinking, why would people in other countries need less calcium than Americans?
I think I know. It's because they're smaller and they're weaker.
No.
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 Americans are strong. No.
That was a bad joke.
It's obviously a bad joke.
Yes.
But back to the point about, you drink your milk and you eat your meat and you maintain strong, healthy bones. This is propaganda put out by dairy industry funded studies. It's just simply not true. And that kind of skewed science has led to inflated calcium requirements, which simply are not necessary. I wouldn't go as far to say that they're inherently unhealthy to eat that much calcium, because of course it always depends on maintaining that balance, but certainly not necessary. That being said, when we're eating a whole food plant-based diet, we certainly can get our 1,000 milligrams of calcium or 1,200 milligrams of calcium without calcium supplementation, because, cutting to the chase here, our dairy cows and our, goat milk or whatever other milk or dairy sources, they get their calcium from the earth. They eat the plants, and the calcium, of course, kind of maybe concentrates a little bit in their dairy products. But we can skip the middleman, skip the middle cow, skip the middle goat, and just go directly to the source of calcium, which is abundant in literally every whole plant food, but most abundant in our dark green leafy vegetables, but really also legumes, really great sources of calcium. I think soy is, of course, a legume that's known for being a great source of calcium. but also pretty much any intact whole grain. And like I said, pretty much every plant.
Yeah. The really wonderful thing about getting calcium from plants is that plants also contain so many other great vitamins and minerals, including that vitamin K that we talked about earlier, helping the body to regulate and balance where calcium goes in the
Yeah.
body.
Yeah. So, and this is maybe a good place to bring in calcium supplementation, which is, like we said, a little bit risky, because when we're just taking calcium and not in the context of a real whole food, then we're not going to be able to necessarily achieve and maintain that balance that our body requires. And we're more likely to calcify our arteries and our, kidneys and gallstones once again. And calcium supplementation has been shown to increase likelihood of cardiovascular disease and stroke for that reason.
Yeah, a lot of people are surprised when they hear that, because I think it's really common still for people to get the recommendation to take a calcium supplement from their doctor, especially women after menopause get this recommendation a lot. But it's important to consider the risks that are involved as well.
Yeah. So what else here? Are we kind of done with our calcium conversation? I think we
Let's
kind of blew
see.
through the information pretty quickly.
We did kind of blow
And
through the
we've
information
got
pretty
we've got a
quickly.
question in the chat, and we generally like to take questions specifically aligned with our conversation here. But since we've got a few seconds, and I'm sure a lot of people are also curious, do you recommend supplements for other things besides calcium? I'm assuming, like vitamin B12 or omegas. And the answer is vitamin B12. Like absolutely, we generally recommend supplementing with 250 micrograms per day or 2,500 micrograms per week, just to cover the base and ensure that we're not going to be deficient in that vitamin. That doesn't come from animal products. It doesn't come from plants. It comes from bacteria that are, not really, we can't rely upon those bacteria existing in our guts or in our fermented foods or stuff like that. So we generally like to ensure vitamin B12 through supplementation.
And while we're not big calcium supplement fans, we are big vitamin D supplement fans. A lot of people are deficient in vitamin D.
Yeah.
It's good to get your levels checked regularly.
Like I did, I was, it was like we got our vitamin D levels checked in the fall, and I was thinking, okay, I've been in the sun all summer, should be pretty good. I don't supplement with vitamin, or I wasn't supplementing with vitamin D on any sort of regular, consistent basis. So I'm like, we'll see how well I did, living in Colorado in the sun, and I did not do well. So,
You were low normal.
I was low normal.
Yeah.
It was like, right around 30.
Yeah.
Right around 30,
Yeah.
which, it's more is better. Not more, like there is an upper limit to what's good, 60, 70. It's kind of a little controversial, but in any event, vitamin D supplementation, depending on your baseline status, is of course helpful. And, we woven into this conversation of maintaining calcium balance and optimizing bone health. And of course, we know we've done podcast episodes specifically on vitamin D and all the things that it does for us regarding our immune system, our everything.
Yeah,
right?
Go check out that episode. And then for omega-3 fatty acids, it really depends on the individual, because, well, we do recommend that you definitely either take ground flax seeds every day or that you supplement.
Yeah.
And many people can get enough omega-3 fatty acids from the flax seeds. The important thing is that you have a good ratio between omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. And the best way to test this is through a blood test called the omega index test. So some people, even when eating whole food plant-based, find that they need a little bit of extra oomph, and that's when algae oil can bring up their omega-3 to omega-6 ratio.
Because we know, of course, that our fish are eating those algae, just like our dairy cows are eating the calcium. Every nutrient that our bodies need fundamentally comes from the earth. So yes, we can, in fact, achieve all of our nutritional needs while eating whole food plant-based. And of course, cutting out that middleman, eating lower on the food chain, always so important.
Yeah, and one more note about calcium, actually, because another supplement that we often recommend just daily is to add trace mineral drops to water that we drink throughout the day. And one of the minerals that's found in the trace mineral drop complex is, of course, calcium. And you might read that and say, oh no, I heard that I'm not supposed to supplement with calcium, but these mineral drops have calcium in them. But it's such a trace amount. And it's also, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that that water is intended to be mineralized.
Right.
And that's not like a mineral. That's not like a calcium supplement.
No,
that's
it's
just
not.
like natural
It's a very
water.
different thing.
It's a very different thing. And as you were talking, I was remembering one other point that I forgot to bring up earlier in this conversation, which is about the pH balance of our body. We've kind of opened the window and doors to a lot of different deep topics, omega-3s and all of these other things, but pH balance and maintaining an alkaline environment in our body is another one, specifically important for kidney health and avoiding the formation of stones. Yes. So really what that means is avoiding processed foods and avoiding animal products, because the proteins that are abundant, the amino acids that are more abundant in our animal foods, are more acid forming. They're more of the sulfur containing amino acids like methionine and cysteine that create sulfuric acid when broken down and push the body into this acidic direction, which can cause a calcium imbalance, because calcium, rather than going and storing in our bones and our teeth like we want it to, calcium stays in our blood to kind of buffer the acidity that's created from that acid forming diet. So eating an alkaline diet, maybe you've heard about it, and drinking alkaline water, maybe you've heard about it. We should be doing that, and alkaline water should naturally be alkaline by the presence of minerals in that, not by the presence of just sodium bicarbonate or baking soda. That's not really the most sustainable or healthy way to stay alkaline. Eating fresh fruits and vegetables and drinking natural spring water is really the best way to maintain that alkaline environment.
Yeah, how did we forget that earlier? That's a huge point.
That's a huge point.
Yeah.
And in terms of another question about trace mineral drops, we generally recommend Concentrace, which is pretty widely available from Trace Minerals Research. It comes in a blue bottle.
I recently found it in our local Kroger brand or Kroger store.
Yeah, you can find it.
Yeah, so it's pretty much everywhere now, which is great.
Well, I guess we kind of not only covered calcium today, but we were also given great opportunities through brilliant questions to talk about other things, and I'm glad we had the time to do so.
Yes.
So thanks as always for tuning in to another episode of Medicinal Monday on the Alter Your Health podcast. Feel free to share any feedback, any comments, and share this episode with anyone you know and love who's confused about calcium and their plant-based diet.
If you're looking for more support, you have two options. You can become an Alter Health supporter through our local site. It's just $11 a month, and you receive an invitation to a weekly private Zoom call.
Monthly
Zoom call with the community, and you also get a weekly meal guide. Or if you're looking for more comprehensive support, check out our Thrive on Plants program. You can go to our website at www.alter.health to learn more.
All right. Peace and love, you guys. Till next time.
Bye for now.